We're going to express something that's more true than true, more unimaginably beautiful, wonderful, decent, kind, revealing, mature, educated, free, open, than everything else, and every thought, and every emotion, and every incarnation, and every circumstance. And that's the fact that God, that which we call God, which is infinitely more precious and wonderful than people think that would be, and at the same time, at the end of it all, for this world system, it decries a better future for us all. It means that God actually is God, and that all the beautiful statements about the end of all the pain in the world and so forth, and conditions of nirvana and so forth, they're relevant for today's talk, today's empowerment, that we understand very clearly that there's an end to all the madness. Trying to present this in as quiet, spiritual way as we all feel in our daily, quiet times and so forth, in our daily walks. We're gentle little people, aren't we? The spiritual ones. Greg's the most gentle man I know, and he's an 8th degree martial arts world champion, very scary fighter, but that's a different discipline. Point is, when you're spiritual, and you could be a UFC fighter like my buddy Andre Sukumta, who teaches in this room, or Pedro Mink, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher, but they're all very spiritual. At the same time, I am the most non-violent human being that's ever walked the earth. But then when you're disciplined in that, I've always enjoyed that for the spiritual discipline of it. I thought all the schools should have martial arts training. I'm saying that to say there are many different kinds of people. My friend Jessica here, or my special friend Susan, who put together that book After Time, which would be very important for today to mention, describes all this fantastic knowledge in a very simple, beautiful, and exquisite way. That God actually is God. So when you identify with God, it's not this condition of nirvana that we'll experience, which we will, where the Buddha said you will enter the house of your illusions no more once you are awake, once you are aware. And I'm saying that be awake, to be aware, is you take the entirety with you. That none of this really is. It really is, as stated in all the mystical traditions, the world really is an illusion. Really, really, really is. So whether you're a poet, a martial arts master, an astrologer with a degree, a doctorate like Jessica, it doesn't matter what you are. My mother was enlightened. I know that, she knows that, everyone knows that. She did not know that during her life because, like my friend Corrine or my friend Susan George, who put together this book, there's a future that you're squashed here, you're beaten. And so we're going to discuss very clearly how you will break the spell, but it's not just for you. And all of us who are spiritual, we don't want to be enlightened. We want it because we love someone, because we care, because there's a sick child in our life. You see what I'm saying? So we can't let go of what seems to be here. And I'm saying you can let go of what seems to be here. And that's the only path that is. There are times when I can't visit or see someone that I physically, but I'm there emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, always. Because I know that what I'm involved in, this condition of spiritual illumination, enlightenment, just spirituality you can call it, is the breaking of the spell for everyone. There's no way I would ever do this if it didn't mean that. because from a child I've been aware that, and there are many people like me, many millions and millions, that God really is God, that there is a God that is so wonderful, so endearing, so true, so kind, so humbling to be aware of God. But we're very selfless, aren't we? We who are spiritual. It doesn't matter whether we're, again, the housewife, the whatever, the martial arts teacher, the business owner, the astrologer with a doctorate, it's all unimportant, because we have within our core, the core of our being, a very delicate, gentle nature, don't we? And that's the contact with that which we call God. And for today, we're going to try to delve into this condition of enlightenment, nirvana, which will involve for you ending this whole world that seems to be. When I work with people, I can get very, very overwhelmingly powerful with it, visceral, to say this really isn't here. It's not this, it's not that. But in a spiritual empowerment meditation, you want to present the gentleness, the kindness, the simplicity that God is, without moving into that area. But it's what I'm saying, there are many, many tools you can use to divest a friend or loved one of their confusion. Everyone's very different. The other day I had a big, strong athlete with me, and I just made it very, very, very clear that no, nothing, don't think, don't feel, don't be here. This isn't. And I'm being very gentle with it. And but when you do this spiritually, it's like a healing, but it's, the room lights up like the sun. And then the whole world disappears. There's no surface or depth or weight or height or color to anything. It's just boom, an openness that you can ascribe different conditions or to it, but it's more than all conditions, all thought. It's more than love itself. It truly is the other end of the rainbow. So God actually is God, but I don't want to present it in a way like slamming the Bible down and saying it's the end of the world, which it is, but that's what it is. I just want us all to be very confident, like my friend John in Dublin, that there is a way through all this, to end all this. And that's the way and the only way, and the truth. Hope this is making sense so far. I'm going to try to fold it in and around itself to be very clear that when you sit in your quiet times, nothing is. You don't have to be taken in by the social or political atmosphere or the latest thing on YouTube or whatever. It's you do whatever to keep you going because we have human senses, but you're going to decondition yourself by not relating or not reacting to anything. I know growing up, I always, no matter who or what circumstance, whether it was something very powerful or quiet, or I always greeted people twice. I'd say, hi, good to see you. And whenever they said something, I'd say thank you. And then I'd thank them for the communication, and then I'd thank them or acknowledge that I heard the communication. And if you do this with everyone you run into, then you'll see that you can quiet the space between you and others simply by acknowledging their presence. Everyone feels alone here. And that's the first large open mouth and devil's gate here, where you get caught up. Listen to people. Make yourself completely quiet. No matter who I see or where I'm at, I'll be completely quiet in that moment before acknowledging their presence. I'm aware of everyone who walks by me, drives by me, lives near me, exists in another universe, always. How could I not be? How could you not be? And how could you think that this really is? That a God in heaven would have made this madness? How could that be? It can't be, and it isn't. We have to be not tough and strong, but very clear that it's not here. And whenever you are, things will try to collapse in on you and make, well, this is happening, or there's music here, or a person here, or a crash, or a thought, and all of it is irrelevant. All of it is the face of Satan. And if you look Satan in the eye, it's this force, but it is a Satan, but it's nothing if you know God. Really is God. I remember seeing a friend, won't mention the name, just met somewhere and invited to come out to my place in the woods the next day and let's talk, because this person was going through hell and they were completely illumined but completely ravaged by this world. And I gave this person a couple sessions and, just talk and download their case, and was asked how long it would take, and I was in shock because I felt and knew that it would take 200 years for this person living incarnations in this world to come to fruition, to get over the difficulties, and yet it was a completely illumined person. Not long after that, she passed, a very young lady, very magnificent presence, but no one understood it, so everyone was all over her and using her because she was a great beauty and artistic talent and so forth. And so, as much as that broke me when I found that out, within a couple years, she became one of the teachers. She gives a number of these classes that I've done here for the last 15 years in this building. And you can't say man, woman, child. Corinne is a living God. And so because she's not here and I'm doing this, we could meet in the middle. And what I'm saying, this world is not a big deal. There's nothing to it. Break the spell. Please. Do it for those you love most. My friend Susan, my mother, my teacher Kathleen, Greg's wife Mari, she's a saint. Raising 3 fighters, and she's just a sweet little lady. And so people like that are certainly Rob's daughter, who was an illumined person who I knew in India in 1970. And now she's a friend's daughter. And I brought my friend Vental Rinpoche to her birth at Mills Hospital about 23 years ago. And this is Frida Bedi, the great nun, the great teacher from Tibet. And now she's just my buddy, my little, my goddaughter. And but she's had all these memories growing up, and we talk about it. It's very private and personal, and I shouldn't be saying this now, but I'm saying this. The world is different. It really, if you're spiritual, you have these wonders in your life that you can't express to everyone else, and yet it fills your day. And I am, for one, am tired of the fact that in this world, that people in the world think the world exists. What I'm saying is, it doesn't exist. And that if you break the spell for yourself, you'll break the spell for the Koreans or the Kathleens in your life, or my sisters who were all older and have very serious health conditions, including myself, that I won't mention to anyone, would keep me from doing anything, go anywhere. But I will never go to a doctor, so I'm self-healing over a period of time, and I can't explain to friends that I'm doing it now for a reason, that it keeps me busy, where I can't travel or anything. At the same time, I'm so grateful to God that I've had an accident and then something else, because I have an excuse to be alone, because I've been helping everyone around me with all their life and their businesses and their families, and I'm like, but no one's helping this work. And I'm not asking for that, and I'm not complaining. I'm simply saying that God, the same way he did for Corinne, he did for me, and I'm sure Frida let go of her incarnation happily at the time during the horrible experience of her people, so she could be here at a better time very quickly to finish the madness, to do the spiritual work, which is to let our friends and neighbors know that it's over, that God is God. But God, it's so exquisite. It's so wonderful. It's so human. It's so kind, it's so endearing. I'll sit in my chair at home like a lazy boy, and I could drift for 8 hours and not know I did it, or in and out. Like I look at I have a clock on the wall in the kitchen when I have clients over, and I look at it and close my eyes for a second and open up, it's 5 hours later. But there is no time. Time doesn't exist for me. Excuse me for using me, but all the books, the ones that Susan helped me and so forth, they're spiritual. Time doesn't exist. So when you're spiritual, you really do have these experiences all the time. It never doesn't happen, but you're so considerate, so kind, so gentle with people around them, allowing them to be who they are. Because we don't want to intrude, we don't want to push, we don't want to hurt. It's not part of a spiritual nature. It's only in this insanity of this world that we are prohibited from being who we fully are, but we're doing it that's who we are. And that's how the devil gets away with it in some sense, but the devil doesn't really get away with anything. The devil really isn't a being, or a thought, or an opinion, or a person, or a time, or a place. Break the spell. Quietly, simply. Not this, not that, it says in the Upanishads. I'm laughing, Corinne's been giving me these words, and it's just lighter than air. It's infinitely lighter than air. This presence that all spiritual people feel always. We always do. And so my teacher Susan, I know that it is what's happening now, that different people have different things, like my friend Corinne, and all this is going to end very beautifully. And that person I mentioned is going to be closer to God than I've ever known anyone to be. This life ravages our heart and our soul, our mind and our body. My poor mom was just battered to death before she passed. And now she's the full. When I look at her, I'm not seeing like in those Tibetan, the dakinis, what do they call the female angels or whatever, all those depictions of them, they're true, but they're depicting in that art form of that time, of that place, the wonder of this. Like I see my mom, it's all lit in color, or my teacher Kathleen, that I can't even look at. Never could when she was here, because there's certain people that are so humble you can't even look at them. If you're spiritual, you're in reverence. So I'm in reverence for Mari, for Rob's daughter, Jessica, Susan. My dad is even though we meet head on very powerfully, he's my dad. But he's not the big tough cop that he was. He still is, because I guess, I'm still seen as a son and somehow, but these are illumined presences. We're not really here. There is no here. It's just lit from within and without and everywhere. It's a soft haze is what I see always. And so to get into this room today was very difficult, because we're in a big gym, many people here, and all I have to do is be quiet in this room here for 25 minutes, and getting to make that happen without insulting someone or asking them to move here, or don't use this room while we're here, was very, very difficult. They don't know they've been moved around by the dark side to be in the way. So there are degrees of temptation that people hold on to. Some are very rough. That's why I talked about UFC before, like my good buddy, my teacher, Andre Sukumta, he's here. It's just like the Asian sensation. I think he's going to box now, just. And just a sweet, sweet, gentle man. His wife, I'm always in awe of her, like I would be. Susan, she was a beauty queen, or the Miss Rhode Island. And the two little boys they're precious. Went over their home for soup the other day, and just there's an atmosphere of presence in a spiritual household. You know what I'm saying? Where everyone is like one person. And that's why even like in the prisons, you'll go, they honor your family. It's hard to believe. My buddy Tim Gatto comes here all the time. He and have the Jericho project, where they get guys that are convicts but are decent, and they're going to straighten them out, and they run them through the stuff that Greg does when training martial artists. I mean, they are rough and tough and disciplined, and in the end, it makes you when you have to push that hard, you become more human. I wrote a book called The Field once about martial arts, which is the philosophy of it, and it makes you more human, more kind, it's a way of, like with Peter Mink, my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher, he's got a big room back here with dozens and dozens of students, and pushing them, it just makes them better people. It's not about fighting. It's about when you're doing something that makes you feel stronger about yourself, while you're doing it, you're getting over these things in your mind, these temptations of the goddamn devil that tell you there's this or that, or there's nothing that you can't fight through. Emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, simply by being quiet. Whatever method, there are thousands of self-enhancement methods. Techniques, use them. Or just look up at God once and say, nothing else. Nothing will come between us. When I was in Temple University in Philadelphia, like 60 years ago, more, less, I don't know. And I had Michelangelo print of where God's fingers touching the finger of man. And I knew that was my mission. I had no doubt. But then I was allowed to be utterly ecstatically happy around people because I was young and with people and whatever, and you could express yourself more openly. And I was a combat Marine in a college, so it was simple for me to be respected. I mean, in a good way, to happiness, being full of joy. Like Pedro Menk, the teacher, is here, or Andre Sukumzai, the happiest man that ever lived. And he's a UFC fighter, and he's a world champion many times. But it's a discipline, and I'm not saying to do that. It just happens because they're here, and they're my teachers and my buddies and my friends, and we work together, and we're just happy like little kids. This really isn't here. None of it. And when you let go and let time pass like that, and then there is no time. No succession of events, there is just a oneness. So when I'm with people, like I went over to Andre's home with his wife, made some pho or whatever, and it was just, there was no one there. Two kids running around. It reminded me of my family growing up in Philadelphia. 6 kids in this little tiny row house that I just happened to see in a movie. A friend of mine was in it, a Mark Wahlberg movie about a football player, and one of the extras, my buddy Tim, he was an Ultimate Fighter, Tim Lajak, and he told me he was in this movie, and I saw it, and that was my street, my house, and I didn't know that I was poor until I saw the movie, because my mother made sure we had 6 kids, got everything, and then my sister told me recently about how all the people in the neighborhood wondered how so many people could fit in that little house. But the point was, we were like one person, and we still are. So none of us have to feel guilty if I can't go to Florida or Philadelphia or Atlantic City and visit, because we're all whatever, and I can't even get 2 towns away. I don't want to explain to anyone I'm doing it now, but why? Because I have issues. And yet they're all very temporary, but they force me to be alone and do what I have to do and take care of all the family business. You understand what I'm saying? You're more than your conditions. You're more than this seeming life. You are a divine and holy presence. Not this, not that. There is nothing so urgent that it needs your attention. There is no detail or no thought, no opinion, No circumstance in the world that's ever been important enough to gain God's attention. God simply is. And it's a place in our consciousness to come to. And when we together come to this place, this communion with the holiness of the universe God, all the drama will be gone. For your mother, for my mother, free your mind, and the rest will follow. Not this, not that. In other words, don't react to this, don't react to that. That's how you will heal a sister, a brother, a cousin, a friend that's hurt. They could be in prison, they could be in a hospital. I know at my age I have so many people that have all these conditions, and I used to go to hospitals. My buddy take me to a hospital or someone, I'd do healing, and then the doctors, and I stopped doing that, and I can make people feel better. But now the only way to do it is to just not be here and not exist here. And when you do that, you'll feel a lot of light, an awful lot of light. You'll be in a great clearing called heaven. Break the spell. Thank you. Thank you, Greg.